Okay, so good morning to everyone. Now, till the last class, we have seen the cache mapping techniques. The three types of cache mapping techniques we have seen. That is the direct mapping technique, then associative, set associative, KOA set associative mapping, and fully associative mapping we have seen. Now, today we will see about the topic of the locality of reference in cache. Locality of reference. Now there are two types of locality reference present. One is spatial locality and another one is the temporal locality. Spatial locality is basically related to the space. It is related to the space, and temporal locality is basically related to the time. So processor has a tendency that our processor has a tendency to access the same memory block again and again. Now we have seen that like in there is a main memory present. This is our main memory, and the main memory, what we have done, this main memory is divided into, we have divided this main memory in the blocks, and each block in this main memory, in this main memory will be moved to the cache, will move to the cache memory, and inside this cache there is a line present. So we divided the cache into lines, and each line can accommodate a block at a particular moment. So basically what we have done, the blocks that is available in the main memory, we transfer that blocks into the cache, and from there the CPU access the block. The CPU will access the block from the cache memory. So this is the thing. But processor has this tendency that it will access the same memory block again and again. So first, before moving it, we will know what is the spatial locality. Now the difference in the spatial locality is, if a word is accessed now, that the word will adjacent to it, or we can say close proximity, will be accessed next. We assume that if processor has this tendency to access that same block again and again, that means what, in spatial locality, which is related to space, defines that if a word, the word in particular block, the word will be present. So as an example, we have taken that each block can accommodate 4 words. So if a word between these 4 words, let's say a word is accessed, then the word adjacent to it, the adjacent words of that particular word will be accessed next. Let's take an example that CPU generates an address. Let's say CPU generates an address and it requires W2, that the word number 2 it requires. CPU generates the address and it requires the word number 2. So let's say this is our main memory. This is the main memory, and this main memory is divided into blocks. Let's say the block 1, B1. This B1 contains W1, W2, W3, these 3 words. That means here we are assuming that each block can accommodate 3 words. Now the block 1, let's say this block 1, inside this block 1, we have 3 words, W1, W2, W3. Now CPU generates an address and it requires this word number 2. Now how will this access, how this word number 2 will be accessed by CPU? So for this reason, what we have to do, we have to move this block 1, we have to move this block 1 into the cache, and how this block will go there will depend upon the cache mapping techniques. That using what we will use, using the direct mapping techniques, or using the our full associative mapping, or the set associative mapping, we will transfer that particular block into the cache, and that block will be present in the line of the cache. So from there, the CPU will be accessed. Now, word number 2 is what? Word number 2 is present inside the block 1. So that means we have to move all of that block to the cache. All of that block to the cache, because we know in cache we can accommodate the blocks. So that means this whole block we have to transfer into the cache, and CPU from there will access that block. But CPU doesn't require all the words that is present inside the block. It only requires the word number 2. So that means from here, CPU will access the word number 2. But you see, when we are transferring the block 1, that means word number 1, word number 2, word number 3, all word will go there. But between them, word number 2 is required for the CPU. So we make a prediction. We make the prediction that after W2, turn will be on W1 or W3. That means after accessing the word number 2, we say that there is a chance sorry, there is a chance, or we are making the predictions that the word numbers 2's adjacent of word number 2 is what? Word number 1 and word number 3. So the next turn will came to them. So CPU will do what? CPU will access after accessing the word number 2 or word number 1 or word number 3 in the next turn. So that's why if we move the block whole, then after accessing the word number 2, word number 1 and word number 3 will be accessed. So if we totally move the block, then that means all words will be present at that particular time in the cache. So when CPU wants to access the sorry, the CPU wants to access the next word, then the cache hit will occur, because the next word is already present in the cache now. So that means what? Cache hit will increase. The cache hit, we can say the cache hit will increase because we move the total block in the cache. So from here, we can say that in a block, if we accommodate more number of words, that means sorry, that means let's say in the block 2 we have word number 4, word number 5, word number 6. These three words is present in the block number 2. But instead of that, if we make in our block 1, we accommodate all the words. Let's say block number 1 contains W1, W2, W3, W4, W5, W6. All of that words, if we accommodate inside the B1 block, then what will happen? Then when we will transfer that block in the cache, that means the number of words increases. So this total number of words will be present in the cache now. So accessing become what? So CPU when wants to access. Now in this time, let's say CPU wants to access the word number 5. So for this reason, B2 block should be transferred. But if we accommodate W1, W2, W3, W4, W5, W6, all of these words inside the block 1, then only a transfer of block, the CPU will able to access the word number 5. So that means if for this reason, if we keep more number of words in the block, then it will affect the spatial locality. That means the accessing for the CPU, that it will go increase. So that means keeping more words in the block will affect the spatial locality or the block size. So this reason we want that more number of blocks should be present in the our in a block. More number of words we accommodate in the block, because we know that CPU has the tendency to access the next or adjacent words to it. So if we keep more number of words in the block, then cache hit, because in cache the words will be present, all the words will be present there. So no need to transfer the block from main memory to cache again, because if we move word from main memory to cache, that means that word is not present in the cache at right now. So that means what? That means we can say that the cache miss will occur, because in cache that particular word will not be present. But if the word is present in the cache, then we will say that the cache hit occurred. So if we move all the words in the same block and move it into the cache, then that means what? That means the cache hit will increase, because in cache the all words are present and CPU wants to access that particular word is present in the cache. So it will be very much easy for them, for CPU to access, and our cache hit will increase also. So if we keep more number of words in the block, then it will affect the spatial locality or the block size. Okay, it is clear what is the spatial locality? It is clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Anyone has any question? समझ में आया सबको?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The next is what? The next is the temporal locality. Now we know temporal locality is what? Temporal locality is related to time. It is related to time. Now we have already said that CPU has the tendency to access the same block again. So we say that if a word which is referenced now, then the same word will be referenced again in the future. From this reason, we will able to say that if a word is referenced now, then the same word will be referenced again in the future. Why? Because CPU has the tendency to access the same block or words again and again. So that means now which word is referenced, that word can be maybe accessed again in the future. Again in the future, we can access that. Now let's say, take an example. In this example, you see this is the main memory. Let's say this is the main memory. Now inside this main memory, the 5 blocks are present. And this is the cache. This is the cache memory. And inside this cache, we can accommodate only 3 blocks at a time. Here, 1, 2, 3. So 3 blocks can be accommodated, because main memory size is large, but cache memory size is less. So that means all of these blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we cannot able to accommodate in the cache at particular moment. We can only able to accommodate 1, 2, and 3. That means 3 blocks we can accommodate at that particular moment. So we transfer block 1 here, then block 2 here, then block 3 here. Okay. Now let's say CPU generates an address which requires the block 4 now, which requires the block 4 now. Then how the CPU will accommodate, the cache will accommodate that block 4, because block 4 will not present here. So CPU generates the address and check that is there block 4 present? No, the block 4 is not present here, but the block 4 is present in the main memory. Now what we have to do? We have to move the block 4 in the cache. Then the CPU will access that block 4. But where this block 4 we will move here? Because already the cache is full. Now it is said that if we have to check which comes currently, which block comes currently. Now between them, the block which comes currently is the 3, because the third block comes now. And after that, the 4th block will come. So this is what? This is not needed, much needed now. Or this will be referenced sometimes after. two block came before 3. 2 block came before 3, and what it can be replaced, but it is come sometimes after. So that's why the second block is what? Second block we will not choose. But the first block, these blocks came very fast, and this will be referenced again in the future. So this fourth block we will accommodate in this position. So we will replace this first block, and the fourth block we will accommodate in this position. That is what it is written, that now we want to move the block 4 into the cache, but the cache is full. So we have to replace some block in the cache to move the block number 4 into it. Now, if we observe that the block number 3 came into the cache most recently, and its probability to come in the future is high, so don't replace it. Block number 1, this block number 1, which is came into the cache past, and its probability to come in the future is low, so we can replace it. This technique is known as the LRU, or we can say least recently used. Now you see, block number 1 is used very fast, and its probability to come in near future is less compared to block number 3, because block number 3 came currently, most recently it came. So it has the probability to come in the near future. Then that means block number 3 we cannot replace. Then we will check block number 2. Block number 2 also come most recently. Yes, you can say that it came before 3. Third block, it came before third block. So it has the chance. We can say it has the chance to replace. But it is not that it is come very much past. It come most recently. But among them, the first block, if we take the first block, this first block came very much past. So that means it has the probability to come in the near future is very less. So that means we will replace the fourth block into the number 1 block. Then that means what? Here the fourth block is moved and it is replaced in the position of the first block. Then 2, 3. Now let's say the fifth block is required. Now where this fifth block will accommodate? Now among them, among these 3 blocks, 4, 2 and 3, which is the most it comes previously? Among them, if we take 2 is very much previous, because if we compare these 3 blocks, 4, 2 and 3, among them 2 came very much past. 2 is very much previously came. So that means the fifth block we will accommodate in this position. Okay, so that means we have to check that which block in the cache came very much past. Then we have to replace that block. We have to replace that block to accommodate the block we want. Okay, and this technique is known as the LRU technique, least recently used. This is the cache technique. The cache techniques. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this is the technique. You should keep in mind that we have 2 techniques. One is the spatial locality and the one is the our temporal locality. This is the 2 techniques. This is the locality of reference. Now the cache replacement policy. This is the cache replacement policy. We will say this in this algorithm. There are three types of algorithm present. FIFO, fast in fast out algorithm. LRU, least recently used. MRU, most recently used. But between them, FIFO and LRU is in your syllabus. MRU is not in your syllabus. Most recently used. And between them, FIFO and LRU, some mathematical problem they should give in the exam. The mathematical problem, basically here mathematical problems are given and you have to solve that. I will show you that how the problems or in which problem like it is given. I will show you that. So basically what we have to do, basically main memory blocks, we know that the main memory blocks are moved to the cache, are moved to the cache. That means the block present here will move to the cache and CPU will generate address to access that block or the word CPU wants, and that word will be present inside this block. Now from main memory, blocks are moved to the cache based on the locality of reference and depends over what we already seen in the cache mapping techniques, which block will move to the cache. That means it depends upon the mapping techniques which we have seen: direct mapping techniques, set associative mapping, and fully associative mapping method. The particular block which we will require, we will move to the cache. That is the mapping techniques. Now CPU, let's say in the LRU technique, how the LRU technique happen. Like this, the problem will be given. Consider a fully associative cache. This problem, like this, the problem will be given. Consider a fully associative cache with 8 cache blocks. That means from 0 to 7. And the following sequence of memory block are request. That is 4, 3, 25, 8, 19, 16, 25, 8, 16, 35, 45, 22, 8, 3, 16, 25, and 7. These are what? These are the memory blocks. The blocks that is present in the main memory. And we have to accommodate these blocks into the cache. But one thing we have to keep in mind that our cache is of can contain 8 cache blocks. That means from 0 to 7, it will total 8 cache blocks will be accommodated at that particular moment. But here you see how many blocks are available: 4, 3, 25, 8, 19, 16, 25, 8, 16, 35, 45, 22, 8, 3, 16, 25, 7. So that means many blocks are present there. So how we will do it, we will see. Now let's say this is our main memory. Now the first block is what? The first block is our 4. So this 4 will move here first. We will move there. Then 3 will move here. Now one thing you have to keep in mind that when the blocks we move from memory to main memory to cache, that means at first in cache there is no blocks available. In first time when in the cache we start transferring, in that time in our cache there is no block available. The cache is empty. So in this meantime, if CPU generates an address and wants to access the block that is available in the cache, then we will say that cache miss will occur. We will say that the cache miss will occur. Because why the cache miss will occur? Because in cache there is nothing present, no block are present. We have to transfer the block from main memory to cache. So that means at first time the block number 4 will move in the cache, and here it will present it into the zeroth location. Now there is also a thing that why we move this fourth block in the 0. Now you see we have used fully associative cache. Now fully associative mapping say what? We can move any block in anywhere. There is no such constraint that k mod n formula is not present there. So that means any block we can accommodate in any position. ओके तो मतलब इसका मीनिंग क्या है कि हम कोई भी ब्लॉक को कोई भी जगह में लेके जा सकते हैं. इसका मीनिंग ये है कि फुल्ली एसोसिएटिव वही कहते हैं कि हम जो भी ब्लॉक जो है उसको चाहे जो जगह में हम उसको लेके जा सकते हैं. हाँ, इधर हम 0th पोजीशन में दिए, तुम फर्स्ट पोजीशन, सेकंड पोजीशन, थर्ड पोजीशन, फोर्थ पोजीशन, जो भी पोजीशन में दे सकते हो, क्योंकि फुल्ली एसोसिएटिव मैपिंग से व्हाट दैट एनी ब्लॉक कैन गो एनीवेयर. तो इधर क्या था कि फर्स्ट हम लोगों का फोर्थ ब्लॉक आए, इधर फोर्थ ब्लॉक आए, तो फोर्थ ब्लॉक को क्या है हम मूव किए 0th पोजीशन में, उसमें लेके आए. ओके, तो ये फोर्थ ब्लॉक मेरा कैश में प्रेजेंट नहीं था, उसको क्या है उसको हम मेमोरी से कैश में लेके आए, तो मतलब क्या हुआ फोर्थ ब्लॉक के लिए मेरा मिस हुआ, तो इसीलिए हम मिस लिखे हैं. देन नेक्स्ट हम लोग का क्या है थर्ड, तो थर्ड ब्लॉक भी क्या है हम लोगों का कैश में प्रेजेंट नहीं है, तो थर्ड ब्लॉक को नेक्स्ट में हम लेके आए. देन 25 इस ब्लॉक को हम लेके आए, इसमें जैसे 25 लेके आए, नेक्स्ट लोकेशन में हम उसको दे दिए. देन 8 जो है उसको हम लेके आए कैश में. देन 19 जो है 19 को हम लोग कैश में लेके आए. अब देखो ये सब ब्लॉक, कोई भी ब्लॉक मेरा कैश में प्रेजेंट नहीं था, सबको हम क्या है मेमोरी से कैश में लेके आ रहा है. तो ये सब ब्लॉक के लिए क्या है सीपीयू अगर कैश में चेक करेगा तो फर्स्ट टाइम उसको नहीं मिलेगा, सभी ब्लॉक को क्या है हम कैश से लेके आ रहा है, तो मतलब क्या है कैश मिस हो रहा है मेरा, सब ब्लॉक के लिए मेरा कैश मिस हो रहा है, तो इसीलिए क्या है देखो हम मिस लिख दिए. देन हम लोग का जो नेक्स्ट है 6 उसको भी लेके आए. ओके, देन हम लोगों का क्या है 25. अब हम चेक करेंगे देखो, तो 25 क्या है ऑलरेडी थर्ड लोकेशन में, कैश का थर्ड लोकेशन जो है थर्ड लोकेशन में प्रेजेंट है. हम 0 से स्टार्ट किए इसलिए 0 1 2, तो सेकेंड लोकेशन में मेरा क्या है ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है, एक बार कैश में आ चुका है, तो इसको तो हमको कैश मेमोरी से लेके आने का जरूरत नहीं है, ये तो कैश में ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है. तो ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल ब्लॉक के लिए मेरा क्या होता है कैश हीट, तो इसीलिए क्या है देखो हम हीट लिखे हैं, क्योंकि ये तो ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है मेरा कैश में आ ही चुका है, अब उसको हम तो लेके आए ही पहले, तो इसीलिए क्या है उसको फिर चेक किए कि हाँ 25 प्रेजेंट है, तो 25 मेरा प्रेजेंट है कैश में ऑलरेडी, तो इसीलिए हीट हुआ. देन 8 भी देखो हम लोग ऑलरेडी उसको कैश में लेके आए हैं, तो 8 के लिए भी क्या होगा कैश हीट होगा. तो मतलब क्या है मेरा कोई नया उसको लेके आने का जरूरत नहीं है नया ब्लॉक को, क्योंकि वो ब्लॉक ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है मेरा कैश में अभी, तो इसलिए ये दो ब्लॉक के लिए क्या हुआ मेरा हीट हुआ. उसके बाद 16 हम लोग 16 को देखे मूव किए. अब देखो 16 जो है कहीं जगह में कोई भी ब्लॉक में प्रेजेंट नहीं है, कोई भी स्पेस में कोई भी लोकेशन में ये 16 ब्लॉक मेरा प्रेजेंट नहीं है, तो इसको क्या करना है 16 को मेन मेमोरी से मुझे मूव करके लाना है, तो 16 को हम लोग मूव करके लाए. देन 35 क्या है 35 भी क्या है हम लोगों का प्रेजेंट नहीं है. 35 जो है 35 भी हम लोगों का मेन कैश में प्रेजेंट नहीं है, उसको भी मुझे मेन मेमोरी से लेके आना है, तो मेन मेमोरी से हम 35 को लेके आए. अब देखो अभी प्रॉब्लम स्टार्ट होता है कि ऑलरेडी हम लोगों का कैश में 4 3 25 8 19 6 देन 16 35, तो 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 टोटल हो गया है. तो कैश का लेंथ तो 8 था मेरा, तो कैश का लेंथ में 8 को हम लोग 8 पोजीशन में उसको क्या है हम बैठा दिए हैं ब्लॉक को. तो अब जो नेक्स्ट मेरा ब्लॉक है 45, उसको हम कहाँ एकोमोडेट करेंगे? अभी इस सिचुएशन में कहाँ हम एकोमोडेट करेंगे? अब देखो इसमें चेक करेंगे सबसे प्रीवियसली कौन आया। तो इसका बीच में अगर हम देखें सबसे प्रीवियसली 4 आया था, तो मतलब 45 को हम लोग 4 को रिप्लेस करके हम लोग 45 को इधर ला सकते हैं, क्योंकि 4 सबसे पहले आया था, सबसे पहले 4 आया था। तो हम लोग 45 जो ब्लॉक है उसको रिप्लेस करके हम फोर्थ ब्लॉक जहां था उस पोजीशन में 45 को हम देंगे। तो इसीलिए क्या है देखो, इसीलिए मेरा 45 जो है ये फोर्थ का लोकेशन में बैठ गया। देन नेक्स्ट 22 को हम कहा देंगे? 22 को हम लोग अगर देखेंगे तो अब देखो, अब हम उसको फोर्थ के जगह में नहीं दे सकते, क्योंकि फोर्थ जो जगह में था उसमें रिप्लेस होके 45 बैठ गया। और 45 क्या है? मोस्ट रिसेंटली आया है। अभी तो 45 को हम यूज किए, मोस्ट रिसेंटली वो आया है हम लोगों का कैश में, तो उस पोजीशन में तो हम नहीं दे सकते हैं। तो हम लोग चेक करेंगे कहाँ? ये 3, 25, 8, 19, 6, 25, 8, 16, 35, ये जगह के अंदर कई जगह में उसको एकोमोडेट करना है। तो नेक्स्ट जो सबसे आगे आए थे वो कौन सा ब्लॉक था? ये थर्ड, ये सबसे पहले आया था। तो 22 को क्या है, हम थर्ड ब्लॉक जो इस पोजीशन में था उसमें रिप्लेस कर दिए। तो 22 मेरा क्या हुआ देखो, 22 इस पोजीशन में रिप्लेस हो गया। ओके, देन नेक्स्ट 8, हम लोग का 8 आ रहा है। 8 तो ऑलरेडी देख रहा है कि हम लोग का कैश में प्रेजेंट है, इसको लेके कोई चिंता करने का जरूरत ही नहीं है। 8 तो कैश में ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है, तो इसको तो हमको लाने का जरूरत नहीं है मेन मेमोरी से, तो इसको हम छोड़ देंगे। देन 3, ये जो थर्ड, अभी देखो थर्ड ब्लॉक का मेरा जरूरत नहीं था, उसको रिप्लेस करके हम क्या है 22 जो था उसको हम 3 जो ब्लॉक है उसके पोजीशन में बैठाए। तो अभी हम क्या करेंगे? अभी थर्ड जो है उसका फिर जरूरत आ गया, हम तो उसको मेन मेमोरी में ट्रांसफर कर दिए थे, क्योंकि मेरा उस पोजीशन में मेरा नेक्स्ट जो ब्लॉक का जरूरत है उसको लाने के लिए। अब फिर उस थर्ड का जरूरत है मुझे, तो फिर मुझे ट्रांसफर करना है थर्ड को मेन मेमोरी से कैश मेमोरी में, उस ब्लॉक को लाना है। अब देखो कौन सा पोजीशन में हम थर्ड जो ब्लॉक है उसको लाएंगे? हम इस पोजीशन में नहीं ले सकते हैं, क्योंकि 22, 45 ये तो अभी रिप्लेस हुआ। 25, इस 25 को अगर हम देखेंगे, देखो 25 तो कुछ देर पहले ही उसको हम एक्सेस किए, तो 25 पोजीशन में भी हम नहीं ला सकते। 8 का पोजीशन तो नहीं होगा, क्योंकि अभी उसको हम कुछ देर पहले देखे कि 8 अवेलेबल है क्या नहीं, उसको चेक करें। तो ये सब क्या है, अभी वो आए हैं। मगर अगर हम देखें तो ये जो 19 पोजीशन है, 19 जो है ये बहुत पहले आया था। तो हम लोग क्या है 3 को 19 जो पोजीशन में था उसमें ट्रांसफर कर देंगे, उसमें ट्रांसफर कर देंगे 19 को, 3 को, थर्ड ब्लॉक को 19 में ट्रांसफर कर देंगे। देन 25 को चेक करेंगे, 16, देन 16 को चेक करेंगे। देन 16 को देखो, 16 ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है मेरा कैश में, तो उसको लेके टेंशन नहीं है, क्योंकि वो ऑलरेडी मेरा प्रेजेंट है कैश में, तो इसको तो लाने का जरूरत ही नहीं है मुझे। 25, उसको भी लाने का जरूरत नहीं है, क्योंकि 25 ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट है मेरा कैश में। देन 7, 7 जो है उसको मुझे मूव कराना है। अब 7 जो है उसको कहाँ हम मूव करेंगे? तो ये सब ब्लॉक्स को अगर हम लोग ट्राई देखते हैं तो उसके अंदर सबसे पहले कौन आया था? ये 6 ब्लॉक, ये 6 जो ब्लॉक है वो सबसे पहले आया था। तो हम 6 जो ब्लॉक है उसका पोजीशन में हम 7 को रिप्लेस करेंगे। तो यही मुझे चेक करना है कि तुमको जब वो ये देगा तो बोल देगा कि कौन सा एसोसिएटिव कैश है, ये फुल्ली एसोसिएटिव कैश है या डायरेक्ट मैपिंग का कैश है या के वे सेट एसोसिएटिव का कैश है। उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करके तुमको कैश को प्रिपेयर करना होगा। अब मेमोरी ब्लॉक्स को क्या है 1 by 1 तुमको ट्रांसफर करना होगा मेमोरी ब्लॉक्स को मेन मेमोरी से कैश मेमोरी में। और ये चीज देखना है तुमको कि अगर वो ब्लॉक अवेलेबल है तो ठीक है, ट्रांसफर करने का तो कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है, मगर ब्लॉक अगर अवेलेबल नहीं है उसको मेन मेमोरी से कैश मेमोरी में ट्रांसफर करना है। और अगर ब्लॉक अवेलेबल है तो उसका मींस हिट हुआ, ब्लॉक अवेलेबल नहीं है तो उसका मींस मिस हुआ। अब ऐसा सिचुएशन आएगा जब तुम्हारा ऑलरेडी फुल हो चुका है कैश, मगर तुम्हारा मेमोरी ब्लॉक्स अभी भी उसमें एकोमोडेट करना है, तो मुझे चेक करना है कि कौन सा ब्लॉक सबसे पहले आए थे, कौन सा ब्लॉक सबसे पहले आए थे, उसके ऊपर डिपेंड करके तुमको इधर एकोमोडेट करना है ब्लॉक। ओके, तो नेक्स्ट ब्लॉक को हम लोग एकोमोडेट करेंगे इसके ऊपर बेसिस में देख के कि कौन सा ब्लॉक सबसे पहले आए थे, सबसे पहले आए थे। इसके ऊपर देखो, ये जो हम लोग करें तो यही हम देखें कि सबसे पहले जो ब्लॉक आया था, ये टोटल जो ब्लॉक को हम रिप्लेस करेंगे, मतलब जिसको अभी हम एकोमोडेट करेंगे, उसको छोड़ के अभी तक जितना ब्लॉक मेरा आया है कैश में, उसके अंदर सबसे पहले कौन आया था, उसको चेक करने के बाद हम लोग उसमें रिप्लेस करेंगे। ठीक है, क्लियर?
यस सर।
ओके, तो आज उतना टाइम नहीं है, हम नेक्स्ट जो फीफो टेक्निक आज नहीं दिखा पाएंगे। तो फीफो भी और एक टेक्निक जो हम नेक्स्ट क्लास में देखेंगे, ये डिस्कस करेंगे फीफो टेक्निक्स जो है, और फीफो में कैसे होता है। फीफो है फर्स्ट इन फर्स्ट आउट। फीफो है मतलब जो फर्स्ट है, जो ब्लॉक को हमको फर्स्ट में देखेंगे, मानो उस ब्लॉक को ही हम रिप्लेस कर देंगे। उधर ऐसे दिखना नहीं है कि कौन सा ब्लॉक सबसे पहले आया था, ऐसे कुछ कंडीशन मुझे नहीं देखना है, जो फास्ट में आया था उसको ही रिप्लेस कर दो। यही टेक्निक है फीफो का, तो वो हम लोग नेक्स्ट क्लास में देखेंगे।